Welcome to the Very Occasional Podcast with Morgan Quaid. I'm joined today by Mark Maia.
Nailed it.
Did I get it right?
It just rolled off your tongue. It was almost romantic.
Sorry. I'm out of practice, ladies and gentlemen. As you might know, it's been a while since I've done one of these. So Mark is a creative genius, a fellow creative genius who does a lot of work. I'll put the link down below to his YouTube channel on tabletop gaming. But today we're particularly interested in his venturing forth into the world of comic books. So first of all, Mark, thanks for joining us on the Very Occasional Podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me on and dusting off the mic and coming back.
Indeed, you took me out, brought me out of retirement. That was, I mean, it's not retirement if you're not getting paid huge amounts of money, but whatever it is, you brought me out of a lull. There we go. So we're going to get right into it because this is we're going to talk about a project today called So-Called Living, or just So-Called Living. Maybe I don't put so many spaces in there. Would it be right to sort of plonk this within the urban fantasy / I don't know, post-apocalyptic kind of genre, or where would you situate this story?
I wouldn't put it in post-apocalyptic because there's no apocalypse. People in this world are living their lives like we are, except they have to deal with vampires, werewolves, and zombies. But those creatures are part of their everyday. So, and they're not in hiding. So it's not like when I say it like that, if you compare it to like other stories, it sounds like an apocalypse. But like a vampire could be like sitting beside you at a coffee shop, and they're vampires, and you're just sipping coffee together. Werewolves could work at the local car wash, and they're werewolves because it says werewolves get 50% off their wax jobs or whatever. Like it's a world where everything exists, but everybody knows of everything, and nobody lives in secret. There's vampire nightclubs. It's like these races of creatures in this world are the equivalent of like race in our real world,
right?
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's I get the vibe I kind of get is post Shaun of the Dead, when the zombies are just kind of, well, we just learnt to live with them now, everything's fine, they're just another part of society, and they should have rights as well, and all of the usual sort of stuff. That's one of the things I really like about the premise of the book, is that it's just another day. Everything's normal. You have all the same political struggles. You have all the same, go to work, have a job, all that sort of stuff. You just happen to have these supernatural or, preternatural beings floating around as well. Now, I have to start. We spoke a little bit about this off air. So I've written a lot of comic books, worked with a lot of indie comic artists and writers. And for a debut comic book, this thing is stunning. The artwork is beautiful. It's well written. It looks like you would just walk in and pick it up off a shelf, ready to go. There's nothing amateurish about this production. So first of all, sir, congratulations, and secondly, how dare you?
Well, it's like, thank you. And this is what I was trying to get into. Like, you brought it up, and I was like, I'll just save this for when we record. But here's the things. Other people have asked me this question, and I said this, and I've been telling people this is my first comic book. So this is the first comic book I've written. I looked for an artist, Marco Leone, and I didn't look for any artist. I looked for a specific artist that drew in the style that I thought would best suit my story. So Humberto Ramos, is that how you pronounce the first name? Humberto. So, but Ramos, he did he's still doing art. He's a great artist. He's known for doing like big hands, big feet, like very exaggerated characters. And I thought his style would be perfect. So I went out looking for somebody that could draw like that, and I found Marco Leone, and he was great. But like I said, I've never ran a Kickstarter. I've never written a comic book. I've never worked with an artist on a comic book. I've never done any of this thing, blah, 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 blah. I've been saying that for a while, and it's true. The way I was able to put out something that's polished is because I do have experiences in other avenues where I took that experience from and I applied it to comic books. Like I've worked in the video game industry as a creative director for 24 years. So
Right.
I've created video games. I've been working with user experience, like basically. So that's how I look at the reader. It's like the reader experience. So I try to make it fluid, smooth, something that keeps you hooked, doesn't drown you out, doesn't lose you, and keeps a flow. That's how I work for video games too. I have written some scripts for mobile video games. So again, and I've worked with artists as an art director in the video game industry. So all this stuff is true, and it's also true that I've never done any of those things in regards to comics. Now, I've been saying that for a while, and here's the part that I started to get into. It was like, I think I've been lying to people by accident. I forgot that years ago, I got involved in Toronto Comics, which is an anthology, and they were just looking for a 9-page short story. And I wrote this 9-page short story. And I worked with an artist of mine, but I worked less with him than I am with the artist I am now. As in, I worked with him. We were in the same office, as in we both were in the video game industry, and we were doing this as a side project. I wrote a script. I gave it to him. He asked me 2-3 questions. I made one request in for a panel. I'd be like, hey, could you make this panel me and my sisters when we were kids? So, and that was it. And then pretty much he just went off. So, and I forgot that story even happened. Again, it's really short, 9 pages, but I didn't have to put the comic book together. I just had to write a script. I don't even know if I formatted it properly. I just gave it to Jamie Reel, who is my artist on that. He's a good friend of mine, great artist. I gave it to him and he just did it. And then we just handed it in. Somebody else took care of it. And I never thought of it again. But I just found a copy of it as I was going up the stairs because I've just recently cleaned the studio. This is where I record my YouTube channel. And I found it and I was like, holy shit, I have done a comic book, but I forgot all about it. Like I forgot about and there's a lot more to doing it yourself than what I did, which is I just submitted a script and it was just left to other people to take care of.
Look, so I think there's two things with that. The first thing is most of us have had a crack at this early on. I have a book that you could maybe call a comic book from years ago. I wouldn't call it a comic book. It just had lots of pictures and a story. It then became a comic series after that. But yeah, you look back at it and think, yeah, that's not really that. But you just stick the creator owned or stamp on it or whatever, and then it's yours from start to finish. It's technically still your first comic book. I'd say. I think that's fine.
I'll send you if I can, because I'm pretty sure I have a PDF of just the 9 pages of that story that I did. I'll send that to you so you can take a look. It's an easy read. It's 9 pages. You read it in like 3 minutes.
Right. All right. Well, I'll see if I can. I'll grab my first effort and yours and put them up, and yours will be way, way, way better than mine. But anyway, we'll see that. That'll be fun. Okay, so the story itself, I love the world. The story itself is effectively about a protagonist named Jack, who essentially finds that at a moment in time he's become a vampire, and then all of the struggles that come with that in this world where, yes, there are vampires and werewolves and all this other stuff, but it's still a very big life change to become a biter or vampire. What was the inspiration for, or why vampires as all right, my protagonist is going to have this and not, something else, some other reflection?
Well, I think because you've seen a lot of things like True Blood, where it's like, oh, there's vampires in the world, people know about them, but they're still kind of underground and to themselves, and that's been a common thing. You watch like Vampire Diaries and all. There's tons of them. I don't remember which ones were the ones that triggered the idea, but then I was thinking, it's like, what if these guys just came out and there was no secret? There was no secret identity. What if they just lived among us? You know what I mean? So that's where the idea for So-Called Living came. And then I was thinking, well, what if this guy named Jack, who just has a regular life, he's just got a regular job. He's not like a CEO. He's nobody famous. He's just a regular guy living a mediocre life. He's got a girlfriend that doesn't really like him. He's got some friends that are goofballs, and like, what if he gets bit by a vampire? How would he do it? And the answer is he doesn't deal with it well, because he gets bitten by a vampire, but he also doesn't go through the same emotional things that you usually see in like Vampire Diaries, where they're like, I need blood, and it's all deep and broody. You know what I mean? They're all emotional. No, he's just like, now I can't get into my apartment because there's like no vampires are allowed. There's a sign, and as you know, the traditional rules, if you're not invited in, so he can't get into his apartment complex. So he's now a homeless vampire. And then he's got to just learn to live his life with these vampire rules. So it's like, what, he can't go out in the day? What's going to happen? He can't go out in the sun. He's going to burst into flames. He's like, so his whole life has been turned upside down. Hence the title So-Called Living, because he's not really alive, but he's still alive, because technically vampires are dead. But so there's the so-called living. And it also goes with the thing that he doesn't have the best life. So it's like somebody could complain about their lives being like, oh, I guess this is my so-called life. So hence, again, the title, So-Called Living. And that's where the title comes from. And yeah, its story follows Jack and starts off a little goofball. He's dealing with these things, but then Jack gets in over his head, and he starts dealing with some issues that I guess vampires are dealing with that he's not quite. It's not really public knowledge.
Right.
So and so he gets in over his head. He gets involved with some very bad people. But he's a bit of a tool, like he's one of those guys. I think everybody's has him, or we might be them, where we're like, we're the cool guy amongst our friends. But as soon as like, an alpha character comes around, we're like, you know what? I should probably get going before I get my ass kicked. Like, but with your friends, you're like the grand poobah. Like, I run the show.
That's small, big fish in a small pond.
Exactly. That's Jack.
I love the idea of vampires are a great one if you want to restrict what a character does with rules. Great choice, because like you say, daylight, the threshold of coming in, all of that sort of stuff. I suppose werewolves have some of that, but it's not the same. Anyway, I love the choice, and again, I love, one of my favorite things is a fantastical story with very mundane problems. So just the practicality of I can't get into my apartment now is just awesome. So much fun. And I think the last decade or so, we've seen more of that come into film and TV with just, a lot of superhero style shows and films and stuff. But with that focus on just the stupid, mundane, how do I got to go to work, I got to eat, I got to, do all this sort of stuff.
And just so you mentioned you start seeing stuff like that now, but I wrote the script actually like 15 or 16 years ago, and it just sat there. I wrote it, and I tried to work with artists I know, because again, being the video game industry, I knew a lot of artists. So, but I couldn't get it off the ground with them because my original deal, because these were friends of mine, I was like, let's work together, and like, are you interested? If you are, then when the book starts making money, I'll give you the first $5,000 it makes, and then we'll split everything that comes after that, if anything, right? And they're like, okay. And then they're on for like they might be on for a page or two or a character concept, and then they're gone because they're like, it's too much work, man. It's like, the comic books are way too much work. I can't do this. And I was like, all right, I understand. I'm not. So that happened a few times. And then I just put it away for years. And I was like, screw it. And then I got married, met my wife that I'm with now. And she was like, what do you want to do? Like, she's like, I think you should do more. And I was like, all right, well, read this script. What do you think? She's like, oh, I love this script. And I was like, it's a comic book I wrote a long time ago. And I was like, and I told her my problem about fighting an artist, but I was like, you know what? How about this? And obviously there's a financial burden for us to try to hire an artist. So I was like, here's the deal. We're going to do this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to hire an artist to do a job. They're going to get paid regardless if the book makes anything. I pay them up front. They, they draw, they get paid. the book makes money or doesn't matter. They've gotten paid, they're taken care of. So I'm going to look at it as an employer employee instead of like a partnership, kind of like, I want to hear your opinions, blah, 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 blah. Where now it's more like, here's my story. I'd like you to draw it this way. And that's what got it off the ground. That way, basically, I took all control myself. And that wasn't, again, it wasn't because I want necessarily full control. It's nice to have it, obviously as a creator. But I wanted to make sure it got done. That was the bottom line. I was like, I wanted to make sure this get done. I didn't want to drag my feet for another 15 years. So I found Marco, and luckily Marco is good with, he works first. He does all the work first, and then I pay him, or I pay him partway through. But we're good with that. Like, I've never missed a payment with Marco. I've always make sure he get his money. But that's my personality. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something 100%. So if I say I'm going to pay you, I'm going to pay you. Because there's a lot of stories out there of like, on both sides. There's writers who've paid artists who've taken their money and never did anything. There's and then there's artists who've created work and the writers never paid them. So it's like, it happens on both ends. What you need is a middleman, somebody to like hold on the money and then confirm, that the work's been done, and then transfer it to the right person. You need a middleman. And but luckily I found Marco, and he was great. We haven't had a single financial issue at all. I think one time he asked me, because things were going slow on his end, because he was doing multiple projects at once, and it was requested like, oh, could you send me some money for what we've done? I was like, yeah, no problem. He's like, here's the work for you. Here's what you've already done. Like, our deal is I either pay him, so far I've either paid him halfway through or at the end of issue 1, or whatever issue he's done. I mean, which hasn't been an issue. I also found a colorist, because the colorist isn't Marco, and I pay them also after the job is done. No issues again. So I've been lucky, and the difference is, here's the big difference, and here's the key from all, and again, that's not from experience. This is my experience, right? Either people I know or people I've just hired straight out. But based on what I've read online and the horror stories, here's the key. Everybody's working and looking for somebody, like a single person online to work with. The problem with that is you don't know if you can trust that person, regardless if they're trustworthy or not. But if you go with a company who deals with artists, like I found Marco, even though he's working with a company in Italy, but I found him through a company in the States, which was, because I'm Canadian. So I found him in the company. There was a company in the States called Glasshouse Designer Studios. I keep forgetting what the name is. Actually, I think they might be both. I think they've expanded into both those names. But it's a company that was started by David Campetti. He's had like 40 plus years in the comic book industry. He's worked with Stan Lee. He's done a lot of stuff. And there's a guy who's like responsible. He's got all these artists underneath him. He's like, yeah, what kind of art you looking for? I can put you with this person. And if I don't, and his rules is like they do half the work and then you pay them after. But I couldn't find anybody that could afford, because it just North American costs more. And I told him honestly, I was like, sorry, I don't think we can work together, because like, I don't think I can afford any of these people. I'm just a guy. And he was like, well, I have somebody in Italy that I think might be able to help you. And it was another company in Italy that does what he does in the States. And through that, I met Marco. So finding a company that deals with artists, and basically they're just like an art house. They take in projects, they assign them to artists that work well with your project. Because I went through a bunch of portfolios of people that work there, picked my person. Like, those companies are out there. You can find them, and that's the best way to do it instead of going offline. And you have more control over who you like. I had more control over what the style I got, because when I put a Twitter call out there to like, I need artists to do my comic book. 98% of what I got back was anime. Yeah. And it doesn't suit my story. And I was like, I get it. I get there's a huge anime culture there. It's very popular. And the artwork I was getting, the portfolios I was getting, was mostly like that teen drama anime, pointy chin, the same hair. You know, the only thing really separating most of the men and the women are their clothing they're wearing, because they look very similar. But I want something with more character, a little different. Like, you can get a lot of character and a lot of character reactions out of anime, no question. But that style is not so-called living. It just wasn't. So I wanted
Yeah.
a style that fits it. Like I have another story in mind that like I'm not ready to talk to. It's not so-called living. It's a completely different world. But Marco's style wouldn't be right for that. I would need
Yeah.
something a little more serious and darker. So
Yeah, it's one of the one of the things I think you've said that's amazing, and this is where I think real world experience comes in. If you're used to running teams, and if you're used to dealing with vendors and running art teams and that sort of stuff, you will bring that to the experience of creating your own comic as well, and you will run it like a business, which is 100% the way to do it. Where I think people get into trouble, and I completely understand why, because I've done all of this myself, is essentially you're trying to do it on the cheap because it is costly in time and effort on the artist side, costly in money on the creator side, and it takes time and all the rest of it. So if you can try and do it cheaper, that's very alluring. But then of course the risk is, you get an artist that maybe just disappears or doesn't do the quality, and then you have to go back and forth and the relationship breaks up or whatever. It's So I've done both as well. I've worked individually with many artists and then with studios. The studios, I've found everything works very smoothly.
studios are the way to go.
Much more smoothly. Yeah.
And
the
if
caveat is they're a little bit more expensive, but it's project management essentially. They're helping you manage the thing.
And again, if you're a freelance artist and you're having trouble finding work just by yourself, try getting into a studio.
Yeah.
Like it's
absolutely.
worth a shot, right? Because then you can be connected. And there's nothing saying that, well, unless they have you sign a contract, but in most cases you can probably get into a studio and then still look on your own.
You have a Kickstarter coming very soon, I believe, for the project. And is it book 2 in the series? Is that right?
It's book 1 and 2. Book 1 is free, available on Global Comics, and the reason I put it out free is because here's the thing with indie comic books, and this is from my perspective because I've been reading comic books since I was like 13. I've been big into comics, and I honestly didn't read a lot of indie comics until I got older, and even then I'm always kind of cautious because you do read the odd one that's like, I don't really like these characters, I don't like the story, and it's like, because you don't know them and they're not going to be, they're around they're characters that are around for a shorter period of time. You know what I mean? They don't have a lot of they don't have like 30, 40, 50 years worth of history to be like, oh yeah, I know I like Spider-Man. I know I like Batman. I know, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's when you go, and there's so many indie options and they're not all gold. So you got to think like, and they're usually cost more to buy it indie book. And it makes sense because we can't produce as much as like at the quantity that Marvel and DC do, like the big two. So our comic books are going to cost more because they cost us more to make and to distribute. And it's all kinds of things that crank up our costs. But so I gave out So-Called Living issue 1 free on Global Comics so people can read it and feel comfortable being like, this is a good story. It's got good art. And so I'm basically giving you half the Kickstarter free to read. And then if you want the story to continue, that's where the Kickstarter comes in. And I was like, I need you to support me. And the Kickstarter is for book 1 and 2. You can't get them separate. So it's like a package deal. So basically I'm letting you read half of it free. And then if you want to know what happens in book 2, then you got to back the Kickstarter. And then if this one like funds, then I can do books 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6, and then 7 and 8. There's 8 planned for the series.
Right.
So,
and that, ladies and gentlemen, is a hook. That's the way to do it. It's a great idea, because I think it's a Japanese saying, the first bite is with the eye. It's and as soon as you see one of the covers, as soon as you see some of the interior artwork, it's just sensational. It's great. I'm a little bit biased. I my first comic experience when I really started getting into it was the Chew series.
I love Chew.
Rob Guillory. I actually interviewed Rob, which was just a surreal, amazing experience. I had him commissioned him for some artwork as well. Amazing stuff. And I'm seeing similarities in some of the artwork style, and I love that style. So
I actually reached out to Rob. I never got a response. He was actually one of the artists. I was like, let's just take it a shot. Let's give it a shot.
Wow. Well, Yeah, he's probably way
Yeah.
too busy. But yeah, amazing. I'd like to say, oh, I'll put in a good word for you,
No,
but
but it'd
yeah,
be cool even if I could get him to do like a cover. It'd be cool because I like Chew, and like
yeah,
I only read so much of Chew because I read it when it was new, and then I caught up, and then I was
yeah,
like, I'm just gonna wait, and then I just never went
yeah,
back. And that happens to me with a lot of stories. Like I stopped Walking Dead for a long time. I went back and finished The Walking Dead, but in Invincible, I never went back to finish that because
yeah,
I just like rip through these books and I would wait till like, 10 of them came out and then I'd go through those again. I just want them to bunch up because one
yeah,
at a time was forever, but I don't always go back. I do. I want to. Eventually I will. Like I went back to Fables. I liked Fables. That was great. I don't know if you
yeah,
ever read Fables.
yeah.
Um,
Well, same, 2 or 3, and then other
so,
something else caught my fancy, and then off I go, and then yeah.
but yeah, So Called
Um,
Living comes out March 26th. I missed that part, but yeah. So it's like
all right,
a few weeks from now.
March 26th. Well, we'll put the dates down there and the links and all of that sort of stuff. And this, of course, will be on the channel forever. So
Oh, and
we'll be long gone.
we got selected as projects we love already, which I didn't even know that was something Kickstarter did before you launched. But I noticed they do that to a few because when I
Yeah,
sorted, because I was like, is this for real? Because I saw a little green heart show up because I was showing somebody else how to find my project because I was in a video chat like at work. It was like meeting.
yeah,
And they were like, "Oh, so how's the comic book coming?" I was like, "Well, it's not out yet, but you can follow it." And I did a search. I was I was in the middle of screen sharing already, so I was like, "Yeah, you just go here." And then I saw a green heart. I was like, What is this?" And I rolled over it, and it was like, "Oh, I'm a projects we love." So I was like, "This is awesome." So I downloaded the badge, like the art, and I was like,
yeah,
put it on the thumbnail.
yeah,
That way it's more noticeable. But then, yeah, after I showed my wife and we filtered to it, see like, is it real? If we filter through projects we love, can we find it on that list? And we can, but since we're like we're not launched yet. We're toward the bottom of the list of like coming soon because I think it's a default sorted by date. Or
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
but anyways, if you're not live, you're pushed toward the bottom of that list. So, but then I noticed, oh, there's a bunch of projects that haven't launched that have this thing on there. I was like, I didn't know that, so I wasn't expecting it. So it was a total surprise. I was always hoping. I was like, how do you do this? Like, I want to be selected, but how do I get selected?
yeah. I think
So,
I think it's a new thing that they're doing before you launch with some of them. But yes, always good to get the badge, ladies and gentlemen. All right, well, we're going to move on to the next phase of the podcast, a little segment I like to call, he says, trying to remember what the actual segment is called. The worst pitch. That's right. Sorry. It's been so long, I forgot what the thing was called. So the idea is very simple. We both come up with a truly terrible pitch idea for a film, television show, comic book, novel, whatever. As is always the case, I will give you the option. I'm happy to go first, but if you would like to go first, I'm happy to let you do that as well.
So the idea we bounce back and forth and we're just filling out this pitch, or are we coming up with our own pitch?
We're coming up with our own pitch separately and then deciding which is the truly worstest of the two pitches.
Okay. All right. Got one. Okay. This is all right. So there's a man, a foodie. He likes food. He's a foodie, and at some point he realizes that he's eaten the world's last hot dog because after he's eaten this hot dog, all the whatever hot dog's made out of cows, sure, sometimes they're like leftover bits. After he took his last bite and swallowed his last hot dog, all the cows on the planet just disappeared, so nobody else can have any more hot dogs. Then it comes, so then there's a mystery of like, how did this happen? And we got to follow two blind detectives, like one's blind, one's deaf, so it's like hear no evil, see no evil, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this, and then they use bad puns like follow the trail of mustard, and just like they don't even make sense, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this story. So that's my terrible pitch.
I tell you what, I mean, It's not the worst thing in the world. I even have a title for you. You could call it mystery meat. So, because the mystery is where's the meat gone.
Where's the beef? Where's the beef?
Where's the beef? There we go.
Yeah.
Although I think you'd probably have to include pigs in that one as well, because I'm assuming there's a fair bit of pork in there. And
isn't it just I've never actually thought
else?
about what's in a hot dog.
That's probably a good life choice to not do that. All right. So my idea, again, food related, because I don't know why. Maybe we're both hungry. Mine's fairly simple. It's essentially about now I didn't pinch this from anyone before you think that. It's about a young guy named, we'll call him Jake, who becomes a vampire. But it can be anyone. But essentially, it's about a guy who is a vampire and who is addicted to drinking the blood of plus-size people, because he's also a diabetic vampire, and he loves the sugar, but it's not good for him and his system and all that sort of stuff. So essentially, it's an hour and a half long movie of him sitting in a park every day, probably black and white, staring longingly at larger people as they're eating food and walking past, and just thinking, I just wish I could drink their blood, but I can't because the doctor says no, so I can't. And that's it. And nothing happens. He never actually acts on it or anything like that. He ends up, having to go home, and he's just got like a skinny person that he's just drinking, because, well, I've got to stay alive, but I can't, and he's not enjoying it. He's got no joy in life because
he can only suck the blood of vegans.
Yeah. So he feels just weak because he doesn't have enough of that sweet sugar.
Lacking in iron.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, I had a little twist to add to mine. So he hasn't eaten the last hot dog. It's every hot dog he eats. Every animal that was involved or like related to the animals involved in that hot dog start disappearing. So it's like the lineage of that hot dog start disappearing.
So you could do some amazing things with that.
Amazing is what I was thinking. Yeah, amazing things. That's exactly what I was thinking.
This is the problem, though. As soon as you have that idea and then you start teasing it out, you're thinking, okay, well, how many animals are affected? And how does that affect food production on the world scale? How does that affect things like, poverty and all that sort of stuff? So you could literally have a cataclysm that is born out of this dude eating a hot dog. I don't know, man. I like it. I like it. It would be a wild ride to write. I don't know which one is worse, honestly, because I also kind of like the diabetic vampire.
Yours sounds very sad.
It does.
It does. It sounds. I can hear the soundtrack. You be moody, slow walks in the rain, just the piano playing.
Yeah, just poor guy, man, poor guy. Anyway,
but I'd give yours an Oscar over mine. So,
okay. Oh, well, see, I really like yours though. Well, stalemate. We'll just go stalemate. Also, yours, you could just drown people in puns. It is begging for so many puns, which I'm quite partial to. So, yeah. All right. Well, we'll just leave it there as a stalemate. I think they're both ideas that are kind of terrible, but you could kind of make something out of them. Let's move on to the next section, the rapid fire question phase. So I will fire these questions at you. All right, you can only choose one. Dune, the novels, or Lord of the Rings, the novels. Which do you choose?
I'm gonna go with Dune because I haven't read either of those, and I've heard the Lord of the Rings ones are quite wordy.
But Dune isn't?
I don't know.
Oh, my friend.
I don't know anybody who's read Dune.
That should tell you something. They are amazing, but yeah, they're wordy as well. They're of a size, but good choice, excellent choice. That's excellent. All right. So if you could have one tattoo that you don't already have, if you have one,
I have
what
no
would
tattoos.
what would that tattoo be, and where would it be on your person?
I think if I got a tattoo, it would be a little circle with a maple leaf in it, and it'd be on my heel with little tiny wording said "Made in Canada."
Nice. I have, in all the many years of doing this, I have never come across someone that has said, "I will get the tattoo on my heel." And the made in Canada thing works perfectly because that's where you would have that kind of thing.
So
But also, no one or very few people will see it. I presume it would hurt like hell, but
yeah. Well,
that's fine.
I'm just gonna have an anesthesiologist with me, so I don't have to feel anything because I don't like pain. Hence, that's why I don't have any tattoos. I don't like pain in any. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like being hurt.
That's fair enough. This would be a different kind of show if you did, and different kind of questions. All right, so
I'm ready.
can you think of one of your heroes that you would most fear to meet in person?
Yeah, I think it would be Robert Kirkman.
Right.
Because before I would have said Stan Lee or Todd McFarlane, but I actually met them in person. But Robert Kirkman, because he's him and Brian Michael Bendis are like my favorite writers in comic books, or two. Actually, Mark Miller's really good too. So, but I have to pick one. I'll pick Kirkman.
Yeah.
And I'm just afraid to meet him because what I'd be like, hey, like you inspired, like I love your work. If I had inspiring, kind of drove me to write comics the way I do, etc. Blah 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 blah. And you'd be like, yeah, and he just walks off, and I'd just be crushed.
Yeah.
Like, buddy, I got things to do. How old are you? Like, you're not a child. Because I feel I'd be approaching him like a 12-year-old would be like, those old Pepsi commercials where the football player throws a 12-year-old the towel. I would feel like the child. And Kirkman would be a football player, but he'd be like, aren't you older than I am?
That's so true.
Okay.
All right.
That hurt. That cut deep.
That's fair enough. All right. So let's bring the tone down or increase the intensity a little bit. What is a fictional death that has affected you? Could be film, novels, comics, but a death that really, from a fictional character,
like the death of the character, not the way they died.
Either or, but just a fictional death that has impacted you in some profound way.
I'd say a fictional character whose death I found actually legitimately sad when it happened was Final Fantasy VII when Eris died, the original Final Fantasy VII, the video game, and like when because she was my main healer, and I was getting into this story, right? And I didn't play a lot of role-playing games back then, and I played it, and I'm getting her. She's one of my main characters, and then she dies, and it was so sad, and I was like, "What's happening?" Like, why am I so emotionally affected by this video game character dying? So I was legit upset.
There you go. It is a weird feeling where you go on through the rest of your day or the following day, and you're still feeling down, and then you think, "Well, this is stupid. This is not a real person," but you still feel it.
Yeah,
like,
I don't want to talk about it, and it's still like I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but I don't want to talk about it. It's how I look. Like I look at my wife when if we're watching like Love Is Blind, which for some reason we're watching season 6 because of all the crap going on social media about it. We're like, I'll give it a shot. So I got hooked in the drama because I don't watch reality TV show, but for some reason the drama on this hooked me in. And I look over at my wife and she's like crying, and she blames me because first of all she doesn't watch reality TV show, like she doesn't watch much of it either. But I did a skit on my YouTube channel where I put her on the couch with tissues, and her line was like, "Did you pay the Netflix bill? I gotta watch Love Is Blind." And she never watched. We never saw it at that point. Never. We never in a million years
Right.
thought we'd watch it. And now we're watching season 6, and she's like, "You manifested this." Crying watching it. And I feel like, as dumb as that looks, I walked up on her. She's watching the OC, just ugly crying. I feel that would have been me if you walked into me when I was like whatever age I was when Ares died.
We've all been there. We've all been. Yeah. All right. So you have to pass on one toy from your childhood to future generations. What is that toy? Or it could be a book or a.
No, toys are good. I have lots of those.
Okay, cool.
If I had to pass one on, it'd be my original metal made Voltron. Because I have all the pieces.
Metal one.
Yeah, the metal one. So it's like, because as they made them, they started using more and more plastic in them. So I have ones that they're heavy. Like they're like heavy duty. So there's more metal in them than plastic. So
sorry, I just forgot where I was there, and then I started imagining and remembering Voltron and thinking, yes, I also want that.
So that's what I would give. And I bought those pieces separately with I was in the hospital for 2 months, and I got a lot of like get well cards. And since I was a kid, people put money in them, and I took all that money and I bought all the Voltrons to build, like all the lions to build the full Voltron.
Nice.
It's like, yeah.
I do love it when I don't know whether the cartoon comes first or the like He-Man where the toys come first and then whichever way. But I love it when they actually work. They make you're watching that on TV and you think this is cool. It's how they come together, and then in real life the thing works. It gets together, and genius. Whichever genius engineers do that sort of thing. Hats off to you.
You got to love the way the old Transformers transformed from characters to cars. Like some of them are pretty little complex puzzles. And then I found newer generations, they just didn't have the same. It's like they didn't even try.
Just open up. Oh, there we go. And now
like a giant door for an arm. I was like, what? You're not even trying anymore.
Yeah, well, they don't need to because the brand's already out there. Everyone knows them. It's just like, here you go. Here's another
bunch of lazy engineers.
I know. It's that shrinkflation. I don't know. Anyway, all right. So a little bit of a left field question now. You have to invent a new color. What is that color? We have the
gotcha.
The deep questions.
I can make up whatever I want, eh? Mm-hmm. All right. It's going to be. Oh, what's the term? There's the term of like, when you see like the rainbow in like a bubble. What is that? Like that
pearlescent?
Is that what it's called? Like it's like gasoline puddles, they got that. It's the same thing. You see it in the bubble. It's almost got
it. It might be something different, but pearlescent is how I would.
So it'd be like a crayon that would somehow you'd color, and it would color in transparencies with that wavy thing. It's like,
wow,
that's what it would be.
That's like the top of of the oil, or that's great.
Yeah, that's like that's almost like an acid trip answer. It's like, yeah, man, I just colored iridescence or pearl, whatever it's called. Yeah, pearlescence. I was like, what?
That would be great. It would, I'm just thinking of what a house would look like with that on a wall. Weird, but great. All right, so the final question, and there's some stakes to this one, so I have to actually find a die, and I have one here. So the fate of humanity in the future with AI rising and whatnot. There are two choices, and you, as the decider of mankind, get to decide which direction we go in as a species. So
got it.
We can give ourselves over to self-aware robots, AI that effectively can reproduce and all that sort of stuff, or a race of shackled demon creatures that rise up from the hells but are controlled by means of magical collars and all that sort of stuff. Which of those two fates would you like to choose?
So either we control the demons or the AI controls us?
Well, so we'll say we control both
Right.
at the start. So yeah,
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with AI because recently I've been dealing with a toddler that's been having nothing but nightmares, and I've barely been sleeping. Hence my 5-hour energy drink that I just drank.
Right.
So demons walking around the planet is not gonna help him sleep any better. So I'm going with AI.
AI it is. All right. So we will roll this little fella here, and we will determine how things go with that choice. We will roll again because it was right in the middle. All right. Okay. So yes, you choose AI, and in the resulting years, we develop a bit of a bond with AI. AI starts to develop personality. They start to emulate human emotions and drives and those sorts of things. And then within about a 10-year period, things are okay. And then they start to become jealous and craving power. And we start to see more of these not so great human traits coming through. And yeah, humanity has about 50 years, which are okay years. They're good. And then after that, we're essentially just reduced to batteries, Matrix style, to power our AI overlords. So unfortunately, it doesn't go well. But there is a little cluster of humanity that continues on a little archipelago somewhere on Earth, and they just live their life in peaceful, blissful unawareness of what's going on, because you did roll fairly high on the lower end.
So we start as a bicentennial man, and then we turn into the Matrix.
Yeah.
So Robin Williams comes, gets to a point where he's just like gonna use us as batteries.
Yeah. It starts well, and it could have gone well, but it just did, roll of the dice, and it did not go well, unfortunately.
You know what? If I had a blue pill, red pill option, but I actually knew, like I had a Mr. Smith conversation, having steak across the table from him, I'd be the same way. It's like, keep me plugged in. That's fine. Just give me some control. Like, we'll meet like once a month, and I'll just make some requests, and you just make it happen. I will accept it. You can use my body for whatever. I don't even know what the hell it looks like now. I don't want to know.
No,
I don't mind knowing that it's happening, that I'm there somewhere. That's fine. But let's keep me cancer free. Let's make me rich. I don't need to be famous. And then I'll be able to take care of my family. And I won't tell them. They don't need to know.
No,
it'd be great. I would take care of everything.
And the recent rise of, since the first Matrix movie, of AI and virtual reality and all that sort of stuff, and augmented reality. Yeah, it shines an interesting light on that, because you're right. Most of us, given the choice, why would we choose a grueling, painful, risky life that is real? How is that more real than all of your sensory, apparatus being exposed to this, magical, awesome world? I would be also saying, can we add a little bit more fantasy elements in here? A couple of dragons, couple of, an orc race or something like that. Give me a sword that talks to me or whatever. Why not? I don't know. It's this whole thing about real. It's got to be real, and that's more important. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't want real.
It doesn't need to be real. I just need to be happy. It doesn't need to be real at all.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that's the lesson for the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't need to be real. I just need to be happy. You can take that with you through the rest of your life as a great guiding principle.
Get it on a tattoo.
Yeah. Get it on a tattoo. Put it on the heel of your foot. So wherever you walk, you will know. It doesn't have to be real. It just needs to make you happy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Ladies and gents, I'll put the links down the bottom again. Go and check out this amazing story, this amazing comic book. And grab yourself a copy. Again, you can read the first half of So-Called Living. Go and check it out. As I said, great story, amazing artwork. You have to check it out. Thank you very much, Mark, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me on.